Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizons, watching the stars through the large front window. His ship had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now, looking for new planets that humans could live on. The year HFY was 2547, and humanity had been part of the big galactic group called the Council for 30 years. They were not the strongest or smartest race in the galaxy, but they got along well with most other aliens. The communication officer, Lieutenant Sam Davis, suddenly looked up from his station. His face showed worry and excitement at the same time. "Captain, I'm getting a strange signal from somewhere ahead of us. It sounds like a distress call, but I can't understand the language." Jake walked over to Sam's station and listened to the strange sounds coming through the speakers. The voice was deep and rough, unlike anything he had heard before. "Is it in our database?" he asked. Sam shook his head. "No, sir. This language is completely unknown, but the pattern suggests they need help badly." Dr. Lisa Grant, the ship's expert on alien life, came up to join them. She was a small woman with gray hair who had studied aliens for most of her life. "Captain, our orders are to avoid contact with unknown species until we can report back to Earth. This could be dangerous." Commander Alex Turner, the head of ship security, nodded in agreement. He was a big man who used to be a soldier before joining the exploration team. "She's right, Captain. We don't know what we're dealing with. Could be a trap." Jake looked at the star map showing their current position. They were far from any known civilization, in a part of space that had never been explored. The smart thing would be to record the signal and continue on their mission. But something about the desperate tone of the voice made him hesitate. "Sam, can you figure out where the signal is coming from?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. About 2 hours, away at full speed. The signal is getting weaker, though." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the signal, but keep our weapons ready and shields up." 2 hours later, they found something that made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Floating in space was a ship unlike anything in their records. It was huge, bigger than 3 human ships put together. The strange thing was that it looked like it was alive. The hull seemed to breathe, and there were what looked like veins running along its surface. "My God," Dr. Grant whispered. "It's biomechanical. The ship is partly alive." The alien ship was badly damaged. Parts of its living hull were torn open, and they could see fires burning inside. Smaller pieces of the ship floated nearby, and some looked like escape pods. "Captain," Sam said with fear in his voice, "I'm reading life signs on that ship, but they're not like anything in our database. These readings they're huge. Whatever is on that ship is much bigger than us." Commander Turner checked his weapons. "Captain, I recommend we leave immediately. This has all the signs of a trap." But Dr. Grant was studying her scanner with growing excitement. "Wait, look at this reading. There are smaller life signs too. Much smaller. I think they have children on that ship." Jake stared at the damaged alien vessel. Every rule said they should leave, but the thought of children dying in space made his stomach hurt. "Are they trying to save their young?" Dr. Grant nodded slowly. "The small life signs are grouped together in what looks like the safest part of the ship. The adults are around them, protecting them." "Captain," Sam interrupted, "I'm getting movement from the alien ship. Something is coming toward us." On the main screen, they watched as several small ships launched from the dying vessel. These ships also looked alive, with wing-like parts that moved like they were swimming through space. "They're not attacking," Commander Turner said with surprise. "They're docking with us?" A loud bang echoed through the New Horizons as the alien ships attached themselves to the hull. Then came sounds of cutting and tearing as something broke through their outer door. "All security teams to Docking Bay 1, Turner ordered into his radio. "Unknown aliens are boarding the ship." Jake, Dr. Grant, and Turner ran to the docking bay, along with a team of armed security guards. When the doors opened, they saw something that made everyone step back in fear. The creatures standing in their ship were nightmares made real. They stood 12 feet tall, with black shells covering their bodies like armor. Their arms ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through metal. Their faces had too many teeth, and their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. One of them was carrying something small in its arms. Commander Turner raised his weapon, and his men did the same. The lead alien made a sound like an angry lion mixed with a snake's hiss. Its claws extended, ready to fight, but Dr. Grant stepped forward, ignoring the danger. "Wait," she said to Turner. "Look at what it's carrying." Everyone looked closer and saw that the huge alien was holding a smaller version of itself. The little alien was hurt and bleeding green blood. It was barely moving. "It's trying to save its child," Dr. Grant said softly. The big alien made more sounds, but these were different. They sounded sad and desperate instead of angry. It held up the small alien toward the humans as if asking for help. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fighting, he lowered his hands and spoke in a calm voice. "Dr. Grant, get your medical kit now." "Captain, are you crazy?" Turner asked. "Maybe," Jake said. "But look at it. This thing could kill us all, but instead it's asking us to help its child." "Sam, try to tell them we want to help." Sam spoke into his translator device, trying different languages. Finally, the alien seemed to understand something. It carefully placed the injured child on the floor and stepped back, watching the humans carefully. Dr. Grant knelt down next to the small alien with her medical equipment. The adult alien made worried sounds but didn't stop her. As she began treating the wounds, something amazing happened. The big alien's aggressive pose relaxed slightly. "It's working," Dr. Grant said. "The child is responding to treatment." That's when the ship's alarm started going off. Sam's voice came over the radio from the bridge. "Captain, we have 3 unknown ships approaching fast. They're not like the ones we're helping. These look like pirates." The lead alien heard the alarms and seemed to understand the danger. It made a sound that was clearly a battle cry. More aliens came through the docking port, all ready to fight. Jake realized they were about to fight alongside the most dangerous-looking creatures he had ever seen. Against his better judgment, he found himself trusting them. "Turner, tell your men to cover the aliens' flanks. Let's see what these things can do in a fight." The battle that followed was unlike anything the humans had ever experienced. The aliens fought with intelligence and teamwork, not just wild aggression. They protected the humans from enemy fire while the humans used their technology to target the pirate ships. When it was over, both the human and alien ships were damaged but alive. The lead alien looked at Jake with what might have been respect. It made some sounds that Sam's computer translated roughly as "Pack Brothers." Jake looked at Dr. Grant, who was still caring for the alien child. The little creature was now conscious and making soft sounds at her. "I think," Jake said slowly, "we just made some very dangerous friends." The alien that seemed to be their leader pointed to itself and made a sound. Sam's computer showed the translation, "Zethkar." Jake pointed to himself. "Jake." Zethkar repeated the name, then made a sound that might have been approval. As the New Horizons helped repair the alien ship, Jake wondered what he had just started. These creatures were clearly predators, designed for hunting and killing, but they had also shown loyalty, intelligence, and love for their young. He had a feeling that this meeting would change everything for humanity. The question was whether it would be for better or worse. 3 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison first met Zethkar and his people. The event was supposed to be secret, but secrets in space were hard to keep. Word had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The humans had made contact with the Vorthak, the most feared creatures in known space. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office on the human colony world of New Geneva, reading reports that made her head hurt. She was in charge of all human defense forces, and right now, she felt like she was trying to hold back an ocean with her bare hands. Dr. Ben Carter knocked on her door and entered without waiting for permission. He was excited about something, which was normal for him. Ben studied the minds of dangerous alien species, and the Vorthak were the most dangerous of all. "Admiral, you need to see this," Ben said, putting a data pad on her desk. "I've been studying the recordings from the New Horizons encounter. These Vorthak aren't just mindless killers. They have complex social structures, honor codes, family bonds. They're more like us than we thought." Kate looked at the data with tired eyes. "Ben, I don't care how interesting they are. The galactic Council wants to throw us out because we talked to them. Ambassador Velthun from the Altarian Federation called it galactic suicide. But that's exactly why this matters, Ben insisted. The Vorthak have been the galaxy's nightmare for 2,000 years. Every species that met them either ran away or got eaten. But we didn't run, we helped them. And they remember that. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. The Tiao screen showed Colonel Ryan Webb, who was responsible for making sure the military followed orders. Ryan was a good soldier, but he didn't trust aliens much, especially dangerous ones. Admiral, we have a problem, Ryan said. 3 Vorthak ships just entered our space. They're asking permission to land on New Geneva. Kate felt her heart skip. Are they armed? Yes, ma'am, heavily. But they're not acting hostile. In fact, they're following our traffic control instructions perfectly. It's like they actually want to follow our rules. Kate made a quick decision. Let them land, but keep our defenses ready. And get our translation equipment ready, too. 2 hours later, Kate found herself in the strangest meeting of her life. Across from her sat Zeth Carr, the alien who had first met Captain Morrison. The creature was even more impressive in person. 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor, with claws that could probably cut through steel. But his yellow eyes showed intelligence, not just hunger. Next to Zeth Carr stood a translator device that Dr. Carter had been working on for months. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for basic conversation. Human leader Kate, Zeth Carr said through the machine, his voice coming out in rough but understandable English. My people want to make agreement with your people. What kind of agreement? Kate asked carefully. Zeth Carr's claws clicked together, which Ben had learned was a sign of excitement. We give you bioship technology, living metal that heals itself, weapons that grow stronger in battle, medical knowledge from 1,000 worlds. You give us your healing knowledge and your fighting wisdom. Kate couldn't hide her surprise. The Vorthak were offering technology that could advance human civilization by hundreds of years. Why? Why would you want to help us? The big alien was quiet for a moment, thinking about his words. In all time, all species do 2 things when they meet Vorthak. They run in fear or they attack in anger. Humans did different thing. You helped our young when you could have let them die. You fought beside us when you could have run away. This makes you worthy. Colonel Webb, who had been listening from the corner, stepped forward. Admiral, I have to advise against this. We don't know if we can trust them. What if this is some kind of trap? Zeth Carr turned his attention to Webb. The alien studied the colonel with those bright yellow eyes for a long moment. Human soldier Webb thinks Vorthak lie. This is smart thinking. But Vorthak do not lie to pack-kin. You saved our children. Now you are pack-kin. Pack-kin? Kate asked. Dr. Carter explained quickly. It's like family, but deeper. In Vorthak culture, pack-kin will die for each other. It's the strongest bond they have. Before anyone could respond, alarms started going off throughout the building. A security officer ran into the room. Admiral, we have incoming ships. It's the Xanthari Empire. They're demanding we surrender the Vorthak immediately. The Xanthari were old enemies of humanity. They were a military culture that believed in conquering weaker species. They had been at war with humans on and off for decades. Kate looked at Zeth Carr. You should go. This isn't your fight. The alien made a sound that the translator couldn't handle, but Ben recognized it from his studies. It was the sound Vorthak, made when they were insulted. Pack-kin fight is our fight, Zeth Carr said firmly. Xanthari are cowards who attack from space. We show them what real warriors do. What happened next became legend among both species. The Xanthari expected to find humans cowering behind their defenses. Instead, they found humans and Vorthak fighting side by side. The Vorthak bioships were faster and stronger than anything the Xanthari had seen. The human ships provided precise long-range support that let the Vorthak get close enough to use their natural weapons. Colonel Webb found himself in the middle of the battle when his fighter was damaged by Xanthari fire. His ship was going down, and he was preparing to crash when something impossible happened. Zeth Carr's personal ship caught his fighter and carried it to safety. After the battle, Webb approached the big alien. Why did you save me? I didn't trust you. Zeth Carr clicked. His claws in what Webb was learning was amusement. Human soldier Webb was honest about not trusting. Vorthak respect honesty. Also, you are pack-kin now. Pack protects pack. Webb extended his hand, something he never thought he would do to a Vorthak. Thank you. The alien carefully took the human hand in his clawed one, being very gentle despite his obvious strength. Human and Vorthak stronger together than apart. Meanwhile, the news of the battle was spreading across the galaxy. The impossible had happened. Humans and Vorthak had fought together and won. The species that everyone feared had chosen to protect humanity instead of conquering them. Admiral Sullivan received an emergency message from Earth. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Some species were demanding that humanity be expelled immediately. Others were asking if they could also make agreements with the Vorthak. A few were even suggesting that maybe it was time to reconsider how they dealt with the dangerous species. Dr. Carter was practically bouncing with excitement as he analyzed the battle recordings. Kate, do you realize what happened here? The Vorthak didn't just fight for us. They adapted their tactics to work with ours. They learned from us during the battle itself. What does that mean? Kate asked. It means they see us as equals, not as prey or pets. In their culture, you only adapt and learn from someone you respect. The next day brought even more surprises. Zethkar requested another meeting, but this time he brought someone new. She was slightly smaller than the other Vorthak, with scars that showed she was an experienced warrior. This is Thekmor, Zethkar explained. She is battle commander. She speaks for many Vorthak groups. Thekmor studied the humans with interest. When she spoke, her English was better than Zethkar's. I came to see humans who make Zethkar forget his hunting instincts. Now I understand. You fight like pack, think like pack, protect young like pack. But you also do something Vorthak cannot do. What's that? Kate asked. You make enemies into friends. Zenthari hate you, but you still take prisoners instead of killing all. This is weakness that becomes strength. Very interesting. Over the following weeks, more Vorthak arrived on New Geneva. They came not as conquerors, but as students and teachers. Human doctors learned about Vorthak biomedicine that could regrow lost limbs. Vorthak warriors learned about human tactics that used brain instead of just claws. The galaxy watched in amazement and fear as two of the most unlikely species began working together. Some called it the end of galactic civilization. Others called it the beginning of something new. Colonel Webb, who had started as the biggest doubter, became one of the strongest supporters of the alliance. These aren't monsters, he told anyone who would listen. They're warriors with honor. They keep their word, they protect their allies, and they're willing to die for what they believe in. That sounds pretty human to me. As Kate looked out her office window at human and Vorthak ships patrolling together, she knew there was no going back. The alliance was real, and it was going to change everything. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would adapt or try to destroy what they couldn't understand. The answer, she suspected, would come soon enough. 6 months after the first battle between humans and Vorthak fighting together, the galaxy was splitting apart. President Claire Johnson stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, looking at representatives from 47 different species. Half of them looked angry, a quarter looked scared, and the rest seemed confused about what to do. The Altarian Federation had called for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Velthun, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, was speaking loudly about the danger humanity represented. His voice echoed through the hall as he pointed one of his arms at President Johnson. This human alliance with the Vorthak must end immediately, Velthun declared. For 2,000 years we have maintained peace by avoiding the apex predators. Now these humans have invited them into our civilized space. They have made the galaxy unsafe for everyone. President Johnson waited for her turn to speak. She was a small woman compared to most of the aliens in the room, but she had been dealing with difficult situations her whole life. Behind her sat General Marcus Stone, the head of all human military operations. He looked calm, but she knew he was ready for anything. When her turn came, Claire stood up slowly. The hall became quiet as everyone waited to hear what she would say. Honored representatives, she began, I understand your fears. The Vorthak have been your nightmares for Centuries. But nightmares end when you turn on the light and see what's really there. A representative from the peaceful Zelonian collective, Ambassador Krevell, raised her hand. She was one of the few aliens who looked genuinely curious rather than angry or afraid. President Johnson, Krevell said in her musical voice, please help us understand. How can you be certain that the Vorthak will not simply turn on you when it suits them? Claire had prepared for this question. Because we've seen them sacrifice themselves to save our people. We've watched them keep their promises even when it hurt them. And most importantly, we've learned that they value honor above everything else. To break their word to us would destroy their honor. The Zenthari representative, War Commander Grixtal, slammed his armored fist on his desk. The Zenthari looked like walking tanks covered in metal plates and weapons. Honor means nothing to predators. They will use you until you are weak, then they will devour you. This is the way of all apex species. Then explain this, General Stone said, activating a holographic display. The image showed footage from the recent battle where Vorthak warriors had protected human civilians, even taking deadly wounds to keep the humans safe. The hall fell silent as they watched Vorthak fighters throw themselves between enemy fire and human children. One Vorthak warrior named Kethmorg had died protecting a human school, and his last words translated to "Pack kin safe." Ambassador Krevell studied the footage carefully. This is unexpected behavior for apex predators. But Velthun wasn't convinced. Tricks and lies. They are simply being patient. When they have learned all they can from humanity, they will show their true nature. What happened next surprised everyone. Thekmor, the Vorthak battle commander, entered the hall. She had been waiting outside as the council had refused to let her participate in the meeting. But now she walked forward, her 12-foot frame, making even the largest aliens look small. Vorthak do not lie, she said in her improving English. Altarian Velthun speaks from fear, not knowledge. He knows nothing of Vorthak honor. Velthun's blue skin turned darker with anger. You see? They show their aggression even here, in our place of peace. Thekmor clicked her claws, which everyone had learned meant amusement. Altarian thinks showing strength is aggression. This is why Altarians hide behind others instead of fighting their own battles. The insult hit home. Everyone knew that the Altarians used other species to fight their wars while they stayed safe in their home systems. Lieutenant Commander Tony Martin, a human intelligence officer, suddenly stood up from the observer section. He had been working on something secret for weeks, and now he looked excited and worried at the same time. President Johnson, I need to report something urgent, Tony said. I've discovered that the Altarian Federation has been secretly providing advanced weapons to the Zenthari Empire. They're planning to attack both human and Vorthak colonies at the same time. The hall erupted in shocked voices. Several species began talking at once, and Ambassador Krevell looked horrified. Is this true? She asked Velthun directly. The Altarians, forearms moved nervously. We have the right to defend ourselves from this dangerous alliance. By breaking council law? General Stone asked. By secretly arming one species to attack another. That's exactly the kind of behavior the council was created to prevent. Thekmor made a sound that everyone now recognized as anger. Altarians are cowards who fight with lies and tricks. This proves humans are right to choose honor over fear. The revelation changed everything. Species that had been unsure about the human-Vorthak alliance suddenly saw it in a new light. If the Altarians were willing to break council law to stop it, maybe the alliance wasn't the real threat. Ambassador Krevell stood up slowly. She was known throughout the galaxy as one of the wisest and most peaceful leaders. When she spoke, everyone listened. I have seen enough, she announced. The Zelonian Collective officially recognizes the human-Vorthak alliance as legitimate. Any species that can turn the galaxy's apex predators into protectors of the innocent deserves our respect, not our fear. Her words started something that no one expected. One by one, smaller species began to support the alliance. The ethereal scientists were curious about Vorthak biotechnology. The trader guilds saw opportunities for new markets. Even some military species admitted that having the Vorthak as allies was better than having them as enemies. But the Old Guard wasn't finished. Velthun and Grixtal began forming their own alliance, bringing together all the species that wanted the human-Vorthak partnership destroyed. They claimed they were protecting galactic civilization, but everyone could see they were really protecting their own power. The galaxy was now split into 3 groups. The Old Guard wanted to destroy the alliance and return to the old ways. The new alliance supported cooperation between all species, including former enemies. The neutral bloc, led by the Ethereals, wanted to study the situation before making decisions. President Johnson knew that this division would lead to war. The Old Guard had more ships and older technology, but the new alliance had something else: the willingness to try new things and work together in ways no one had imagined. General Stone approached her after the meeting ended. "Ma'am, our intelligence shows the Zenthari are massing fleets near our border colonies. They're planning to attack within the month." Claire nodded grimly. "Are our Vorthak allies ready?" "More than ready," Stone replied. "Thekmore says her people are excited to fight alongside us again. But Claire, this won't be like the small battles we've had before. This will be a real war." Thekmore overheard their conversation and approached them. "Human leaders worry about big war coming. Vorthak understand this fear, but Vorthak also know that some things worth fighting for. Alliance with humans is worth fighting for." "Why?" Claire asked. "Why is our friendship so important to your people?" The big alien was quiet for a moment, thinking about her words. "Before humans, Vorthak were alone. We conquered because we knew no other way, but humans showed us that being strong together is better than being strong alone. Now Vorthak have purpose beyond hunting. We have pack kin worth protecting." As they left the council chambers, Claire realized that the old galaxy was ending. The careful balance of power that had kept peace for centuries was breaking apart. In its place, something new was being born. Whether it would be better or worse depended on whether beings could learn to see past their fears and prejudices. The war that was coming would test not just military strength, but the very idea that former enemies could become true allies. Claire looked at Thekmore walking beside her, this massive predator who now considered humanity family, and felt a strange mixture of hope and terror. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and there was no way to know where it would settle. But for the first time in her life, Claire felt like they might be changing things for the better, even if the path ahead was dangerous. War was coming, but they wouldn't face it alone. 1 year after Captain Jake Morrison first met Zethkar, the galaxy was at war. Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the battle reports come in from 12 different star systems. The war had started when the Autai Zenthari Empire attacked Kepler Station, a peaceful human colony with 50,000 civilians. The Old Guard had expected a normal space war. They thought they would face human ships using human tactics, maybe with some Vorthak vessels providing extra firepower. They were completely wrong. What they faced instead was something the galaxy had never seen before: human intelligence and Vorthak instincts working as one mind. Human technology and Vorthak bioengineering, creating weapons that seemed impossible. Human strategy and Vorthak ferocity, combining into a fighting force that changed the rules of war itself. Captain Eddie Brooks commanded the strangest ship in the fleet. The Unity was half human engineering and half Vorthak biotechnology. Its hull could heal itself when damaged. Its weapons grew stronger the longer they fought. And its crew of both humans and Vorthak worked together so well that they seemed to read each other's minds. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Jenny Adams from the communication station, "we're getting reports from the Proxima system. The Zenthari have broken through our outer defenses." Eddie looked at his Vorthak second-in-command, war leader Vexcol. The alien's yellow eyes were focused on the tactical display, studying the enemy movements like a hunter tracking prey. "What do you think?" Eddie asked. Vexcol clicked his claws thoughtfully. "Zenthari move like frightened prey animals. They group together for safety, but this makes them slow. We can use their fear against them." The Unity jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Proxima system. But they weren't going alone. Following them were 24 other ships, each one a mix of human and Vorthak crews working together. Director Rachel Kim was in her secret command center, coordinating intelligence from across the war zone. She had created something new, spy networks that combined human analytical thinking with Vorthak hunting instincts. The results were almost magical. They could predict where enemy fleets would attack days before the enemies decided themselves. "Admiral Cooper," Rachel called over the secure channel. "Our sources indicate the Zenthari are planning something big at Proxima Drift. They're bringing in mercenary fleets from outside Council space." Dan Cooper frowned at this news. Mercenaries didn't follow the same rules as regular military forces. They were willing to attack civilian targets and use forbidden weapons. "How long do we have?" 6 hours before the civilian evacuation ships can reach safety," Rachel replied. "The Zenthari will arrive in 4 hours. That meant someone had to hold the line for 2 hours against impossible odds." Dan looked at the tactical display and made a decision he hoped he wouldn't regret. "Captain Brooks, you and the Unity are closest to Proxima Drift. Can you buy us those 2 hours?" Eddie looked around his bridge at the mix of human and Vorthak crew members. Some of them were barely out of training. Others were veterans of dozens of battles. All of them looked back at him with the same determined expression. "We'll hold the line, Admiral," Eddie said simply. War Prime Keth Zur was on the Vorthak homeworld, dealing with his own problems. Many of the traditional Vorthak leaders didn't understand why their people were fighting alongside humans instead of conquering them. They thought the alliance made the Vorthak weak. "You have forgotten what it means to be Vorthak," complained Elder Thakrin, an ancient warrior who had lived for over 3 centuries. "We are apex predators. We do not serve prey species." Keth Zur had heard these arguments many times. The humans are not prey. They are pack-kin, and pack-kin makes us stronger, not weaker. "How can tiny, weak creatures make us stronger?" Thakrin demanded. Instead of arguing, Keth Zur showed the Elder a recording from a recent battle. In the video, human engineers were working frantically to repair damaged Vorthak bioships while Vorthak warriors protected the human medics treating wounded from both species. "Watch closely," Keth Zur said. "See how they risk their lives for us just as we risk ours for them. This is not weakness. This is strength multiplied." The Elder watched in silence as human medics saved a Vorthak warrior who had been injured protecting a human school. When the Vorthak recovered consciousness, the first thing he did was thank the human doctor who had saved his life. I do not understand this," Thakrin admitted. "Neither did I at first," Keth Zur replied. "But humans have taught us that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to protect is greater than the strength to destroy." Back at Proxima Drift, the Unity and its small fleet faced the largest enemy force any of them had ever seen. The Zenthari had brought not just their own military ships, but also hired mercenaries from 3 different species. They outnumbered the defenders 10-1. "All ships, this is Captain Brooks," Eddie announced over the fleet channel. "Our job is simple. Keep those evacuation ships safe until they can jump to hyperspace. Whatever happens to us doesn't matter as long as the civilians get away." The battle that followed became legend among both humans and Vorthak. The Unity led the defense, its living hull absorbing damage that would have destroyed a normal ship. When enemy missiles hit, the biometal sealed itself and kept fighting. When energy weapons struck, the hull adapted and became resistant to that type of attack. But it wasn't just the technology that made the difference. It was the crew. Humans and Vorthak working together, each species covering for the other's weaknesses. Human precision guiding Vorthak aggression. Vorthak instincts protecting human innovation. Lieutenant Adams coordinated the defense while Vexcol led boarding parties against enemy ships that got too close. Chief Engineer Mike Roberts worked with Vorthak biotechnicians to keep the ship running while under constant attack. Dr. Susan Walsh treated wounded crew members from both species without caring which one they were. The turning point came when the Unity's main weapon was damaged by enemy fire. A normal ship would have been helpless, but the Vorthak bio-components began to grow new weapon systems. Within minutes, the ship was fighting with weapons that hadn't existed an hour before. "How is that possible?" Jenny Adams asked in amazement. "Vexcol," made the sound that meant Vorthak amusement. Bioship learns from battle, gets stronger when hurt. Very Vorthak way of thinking. The evacuation ships finally reached safe distance and jumped to hyperspace. All 50,000 civilians had escaped, but the Unity and its escort fleet were badly damaged and completely surrounded. "Captain," reported Chief Roberts, "we've lost main engines and most of our weapons. We're dead in space." Eddie looked at his crew, both human and Vorthak, and saw no fear in their eyes. They had done their job. The civilians were safe. That's when something unexpected happened. The ethereal collective, who had stayed neutral throughout the war, suddenly appeared with a massive fleet. Their ships surrounded the Xanthari forces and demanded they surrender immediately. High Arbiter Zonmel's voice came over all communication channels. "The ethereal collective has decided. Any species that attacks civilian evacuation ships has lost the right to call itself civilized. Xanthari forces will withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Xanthari, faced with the ethereal's advanced technology and overwhelming numbers, had no choice but to retreat. The Unity was saved, but more importantly, the galaxy's most respected neutral power had chosen a side. Later, as the Unity limped back to friendly space for repairs, Eddie received a message from Admiral Cooper. "Captain, what you and your crew did at Proxima Drift changed everything. The whole galaxy watched humans and Vorthak sacrifice themselves to save civilians. Even our enemies are starting to question whether they're fighting for the right cause." Vex Call looked at the stars through the damaged view screen. "Human Eddie, do you think we are winning this war?" Eddie considered the question carefully. "I think we're changing what it means to win. Before, winning meant defeating your enemies. Now maybe winning means turning your enemies into friends." The war was far from over, but something fundamental had shifted. The old guard still had more ships and more resources, but the new alliance had something more valuable. They had shown the galaxy a different way of living together. Species that had been neutral were starting to ask questions. If humans could turn the galaxy's apex predators into protectors of the innocent, what other impossible alliances might be possible? If Vorthak could learn to value protection over conquest, maybe other aggressive species could change too. The balance of power wasn't just shifting in terms of military strength. It was shifting in terms of ideas, values, and hope for a different kind of future. The war would determine not just who controlled the galaxy, but what kind of galaxy it would become. 18 months after Captain Jake Morrison first met Zethkar, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on the neutral world of Concordia. The Great War had been stopped by the ethereal collective 3 months ago, but everyone knew the real fighting would happen here, with words instead of weapons. Secretary General Helen Price walked into the massive conference hall, looking at the strangest gathering in galactic history. Humans sat next to Vorthak. Former enemies worked together on the same negotiating teams. Species that had never spoken to each other before were sharing meals in the cafeteria. Helen had been chosen to lead the human negotiation team because she understood how to bring different groups together. She had spent years as a colonial administrator, helping human settlements work with local alien populations. Now she faced the biggest challenge of her career. Across the hall sat Blood Speaker Moth Krell, the Vorthak representative. 6 months ago, Moth Krell had been a traditional warrior who believed only in conquest and strength. But something had changed her. She had started learning human philosophy and languages. Now she spoke better English than some humans, and her ideas about strength had evolved in ways that amazed everyone. High Arbiter Zonmel of the Ethereal Collective stood at the center of the hall. The Ethereals were the galaxy's oldest and wisest species, and their decision to support the Human-Vorthak alliance had changed everything. Now they would help decide what kind of galaxy would emerge from the chaos. "We gather here," Zonmel announced, in his musical voice, "to determine whether the galaxy will continue the old ways of fear and separation, or embrace a new path of cooperation and understanding." Commander Nick Foster sat in the observer section, still recovering from injuries he had received during the Battle of Proxima Drift. He had become a symbol of the Alliance after leading the defense that saved 50,000 civilians. His mixed crew of humans and Vorthak had shown the galaxy what cooperation could accomplish. The negotiations began with the Old Guard making their demands. Ambassador Veltun of the Altarian Federation spoke first, his forearms gesturing dramatically. Human Vorthak alliance must be dissolved immediately, he declared. The Vorthak must return to their distant territories and promise never to enter civilized space again. Only then can we restore galactic peace. Secretary General Price stood up calmly. Ambassador Velthun speaks of peace, but his own government secretly armed the Zenthari Empire to attack civilian colonies. How can someone who breaks the law demand that others follow it? The accusation caused murmurs throughout the hall. The secret weapons deal had shocked many species who thought they could trust the Altarians. Blood Speaker Moth Krell rose to her full 12-foot height. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. Altarian Velthun fears what he does not understand. He sees Vorthak and thinks only of old stories about monsters in the dark. But monsters exist only when beings choose to be monsters. You are apex predators, War Commander Grixtal of the Zenthari interrupted. Predators cannot change their nature. Moth Krell looked directly at the Zenthari commander. Zenthari War Commander speaks of nature that cannot change. But Zenthari were once peaceful traders before they chose war. If Zenthari can choose to become warriors, why cannot Vorthak choose to become protectors? The question silenced the hall. Everyone knew the history of the Zenthari Empire. They had indeed been peaceful merchants until a series of wars had turned them into a military culture. If they could change from peace to war, why couldn't the Vorthak change from war to peace? Helen Price saw her opportunity. This is exactly why we need a new approach. The old Galactic Council assumed that species never change, that enemies must always be enemies. But we've proven that's not true. She activated a holographic display showing the proposed new structure. We call it the Cooperative Assembly. Instead of organizing by age or military power, we organize by shared values and compatible goals. Species that want to explore space together can form exploration groups. Species that prefer trade can form commercial partnerships. Everyone finds their place based on what they want to build, not what they want to destroy. High Arbiter Zonmel studied the proposal carefully. This is a radical departure from traditional galactic governance. What guarantees do we have that it will work? Commander Foster stood up from the observer section despite his injuries. Sir, I've fought alongside both humans and Vorthak. I've seen species that were supposed to be impossible allies saving each other's lives. If we can make that work in the middle of a war, we can make this work in peace. The negotiations continued for days. The Old Guard kept trying to find ways to break up the human-Vorthak alliance, but they faced a growing problem. Other species were starting to form their own unlikely partnerships. The Zolonian Collective had begun working with a group of former pirate clans, helping them become legitimate traders. The scientific ethereals were sharing technology with military species in exchange for protection of their research stations. The breakthrough came when reports arrived from the frontier territories. A group of rogue Vorthak, who had refused to accept the alliance with humanity, had been raiding neutral shipping lanes. Instead of ignoring the problem or making excuses, both humans and loyal Vorthak forces had worked together to hunt down the rogues. Ambassador Krevel of the Zolonian Collective read the report aloud. Joint human-Vorthak task forces have captured the rogue raiders and returned all stolen property to its owners. The Vorthak prisoners will be tried according to their own laws, but human advocates will ensure they receive fair treatment. The significance wasn't lost on anyone. Vorthak were fighting against other Vorthak to protect the principles of the Alliance. They were putting their new values above their old species' loyalty. Even Velthun seemed shaken by this news. I did not expect them to police their own kind. Moth Krell made the clicking sound that meant sadness. Rogue Vorthak forgot that true strength comes from honor, not from taking what belongs to others. They chose to be monsters, so they must face consequences of their choice. High Arbiter Zonmel made his decision. The Ethereal Collective formally supports the Cooperative Assembly proposal. We believe this new structure offers the best hope for lasting peace and progress. One by one, other species announced their support. The trader guilds saw opportunities for new markets. The Explorer Corps was excited about joint expeditions to unknown regions. Even some military species admitted that having former enemies as allies was better than constant warfare. The Altarian Federation and Zenthari Empire found themselves isolated. Faced with the choice between joining the new system or being left out entirely, they reluctantly agreed to participate. But they demanded strict rules about military cooperation between humans and Vorthak. Secretary General Price agreed to the oversight, knowing it was a small price to pay for galactic peace. We welcome all species who are willing to try new ways of working together. The signing ceremony took place on a beautiful morning when Concordia's 3 sons filled the hall with golden light. Helen Price and Blood Speaker Moth Krell signed the Concordia Accords together, their signatures representing not just an alliance between 2 species, but a new philosophy for the entire galaxy. As they signed, Moth Krell spoke quietly to Helen. "Human Helen, do you think this new way will really work?" Helen smiled. "I think we're about to find out, but look around this room. 6 months ago, half these species wouldn't even speak to each other. Now they're planning to work together. If we can change that much in 6 months, imagine what we can do in 6 years." Commander Foster watched from his seat, thinking about how much had changed since Captain Morrison first decided to help wounded Vorthak, instead of running away. One act of compassion had started a chain reaction that transformed the galaxy. The new cooperative assembly wouldn't solve every problem. There would still be conflicts, misunderstandings, and species who preferred the old ways. But for the first time in galactic history, cooperation was seen as strength rather than weakness. As the ceremony ended and delegates from dozens of species celebrated together, the galaxy's apex predator and humanity's stubborn optimism had indeed shifted the balance of power. They had shifted it away from fear and toward hope, away from isolation and toward cooperation, away from the old galaxy of enemies and toward a new galaxy of potential friends. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it no longer seemed quite so dark or lonely. Together they would face whatever came next.